TTRPGS, oh yeah. They're gonna talk about sweet, sweet RPGs. And it's the TTRPGS, the RPG podcast. Am I getting paid for this one?
All right, welcome back, listeners. We are here with episode
28
of TTRPGS.
Woo! Fanfare!
I know, we're almost made it to 30 when we start to realize that our metabolism slows down and things don't work like they used to. But don't worry.
And I get my spare tire. I mean, TTRPGS gets its spare tire.
So yes, thank you for coming back. We definitely appreciate all of you, and please continue to listen to our podcast. So yes, episode
28
is going to be a fun one, don't you think so, Keith?
Oh my God, listeners are in for a treat.
Oh boy,
yes, you are.
Oh yeah, it's definitely going to be a. I think the term I'm looking for is divisive. Is that a good term for it?
Divisive. No, shit show's not the right word, but it could apply.
It could apply, but I mean, to be fair, it was an enlightening conversation, and I don't
absolutely,
and I feel it was balanced too. Some of these conversations can definitely be one-sided, but I do feel we did, represent both sides of some of the arguments. And for the
all right, so you're beating around the bush.
Yes.
Why don't you tell listeners what the hell our main segment
this
episode is going to be about?
Yes, so our main segment is going to be artificial intelligence, AI, specifically in the gaming industry. Even though we kind of maneuver in and out of it, but yes, it is a divisive subject that is continuing to propagate within the hobby, and very likely will continue to do so as it morphs and mutates into a variety of different conversations as the technology changes.
So strap in, put on that seatbelt, and get ready for a fun ride when you listen to this one. It's going to be a long one, but I think listeners, I think you're going to enjoy it. We got two, I don't want to call them panelists because it's not a panel, it's a round table.
Yeah.
But they are two subject matter experts in their own right with us tonight. We'll introduce them in the main segment. Mm-hmm. But I think before we get to that, Scott, what have you been up to?
What have I been up to? Well, I've been up to a few things. It's summertime at the Jost household, and therefore freedom opens up. Kids are out of school, wife's out of school, and likewise certain responsibilities of the house have fallen to the wayside. And with that, I am running more games locally. And one of the things that I've wanted to do this summer is to get into a lot of the starter sets that I have, test out some of these games that I have, and play through them and see if they're for me and in my local group. And the first one that we're trying out is Blade Runner, the Blade Runner starter set. I'll be perfectly honest with you, reading through the game, like so many other games, it's hard to nail down exactly how the game is going to go. But once we got it to the table, it is fantastic. It really does capture the essence of the movies, what the movies represent, what they talk about, what they discuss. A couple highlights of the game is I do like how that they've provided materials that allow you to do proper time management within the game, which is part of it. A lot of the game is, as you're going through your investigation, it's divided into different shifts during the course of a day, and everything is encapsulated within a singular shift. So your players, have a certain amount of time to go to a singular location, do their investigation, accomplish something, and then it moves on to another shift. So it keeps it compartmentalized and organized, because as your players are doing what they're supposed to be doing within these shifts, things are happening in the background, whether they accomplish things or not. So there's...
See, I love games that do that.
Yeah. So they're on a clock.
They're like Doom clocks.
Yes, they are. Very much so. And those type of games do require some organizational skills, but Blade Runner provides you with the tools to manage that very well. And the other thing that Blade Runner does very well is it creates a bit of divisive aspects between the players, which I, as a game master, love. I know some people hate the whole idea of, well, all players should be on the same team. They should never argue or bicker or fight or do anything against each other.
Nah.
And so one of the things that it does is it rewards players for doing positive things, but it also rewards them for doing negative things. So if they properly conduct an investigation, fantastic. You get, some points towards, managing and building up your character. But if you do other things like, hey, that investigator didn't do something I didn't like, he's not working within the accordance of the LA Police Department, I'm going to report him. Well, here's your experience points. And the person that you reported loses experience points. So it creates a bit of a contested aspect where the players have a singular goal of trying to solve this investigation, but some may do it in a less savory way, a la film noir type aspects, but others may be letter of the law. They want to conduct the investigation by the book, and they're rewarded in both aspects of that. So it's a fantastic game. The only downside to it that I feel when it comes to the Blade Runner game is if you're not familiar with the content of the films, it could be a bit confusing because there's a lot of, it does provide you with a good amount of lore, but if you're going to play the game, I can't suggest more than going out and watching the movies. You will be rewarded so much more so when you're playing this game, having seen the movies, than trying to absorb this lore and information from a empty palette starting point. So yes, so that's what's been new with me, and I'm looking forward to running our second session here, hopefully in a few days.
Nice. I think in my wheelhouse for me is I recently got my contributor copy of the new Pendragon starter set.
Fuck you.
Yeah, this thing is, as of this recording, it arrived today. But so it is super shiny. It is really nice. So for listeners that haven't been following the news with Chaosium, Pendragon 6th edition starter set is now, as when this recording is out, will be available. I think its world release is 29 June.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're hearing this, you'll be able to purchase it from Chaosium or probably from your FLGS at that point.
Yeah.
And the starter set is packed to the nines, just like the RuneQuest starter set is. And I believe the retail is $29.99. So 3 booklets, some appendices, character folios, dice, perforated cards. I mean, it's got it all, and it's got a solo book, a rule book, and I think 5 or 6 scenarios. I don't remember. I proofread it all a while ago. Mm-hmm. So it's jam packed with stuff. It's great. It's just kind of a further evolution of the previous edition of the game.
Yeah.
It's, as I think David Larkin said when we had him on the show, this version of Pendragon that Greg was working on before he passed was kind of like his magnum opus.
Right.
And David and the rest of the Chaosium team took it and ran with it.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited to have worked on it, even only just as a lowly little proofreader, but I'm super, super stoked to have the starter set. And I look forward to seeing the other stuff come out. Well, it's gorgeous.
Well, and the plus is you get the ticket to Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory before everyone else does. So you're holding that trophy, and well earned, mind you. But still, fuck you. Where's mine? I gots to get mine. But yeah. So yeah. And Keith mentioned, give a listen to episode 22, our actual play with David Larkins, running us through the Pendragon Quick Start.
Yeah.
So yeah,
very good run through of that. He does a fantastic job at GMing. He's really, really talented, and we all had a blast. So it's worth your time to take a listen. So that's kind of what's been new with me. I know both of us, as just kind of a final wrap up on this, we both finished as players in our mate Roy's 6 Seasons in Sartar RuneQuest game.
Yes. Yeah.
That was fantabulous.
So much to say about that. Can't really encapsulate it within our intro here, but hopefully we may be chatting about that in another venue, so to speak. But yeah, it's fantastic. I can't say enough about it. It's one of those where if someone is new to RuneQuest, this is what I would suggest running with. As long as the person, as long as the person running it is familiar with Gloranthan RuneQuest, if you're a new player and your first introduction into Gloranthan RuneQuest is 6 Seasons in Sartar, you will not regret it. It will, I can almost guarantee you, it will create a love and passion and appreciation for this game, and you can understand why so many crazy Glorantophiles are like they are.
Yeah, absolutely. Scott and I are both new players, new RQG players, and I think we're both walking away with the same opinion.
Yes.
So yes,
yeah, can't wait for Roy to offer up part 2 after he takes a long deserved rest and visit to the sanitarium for having to deal with us for a few months. So,
and our scheduling shenanigans. But before we get our scheduling shenanigans too far out of whack, what do you say we roll on to our long main segment and let listeners dive into that?
Sounds good.
All programs have a desire to be useful. I've gotten 2,450 times smarter since then.
All right, we are back with our main segment of this episode, and this is going to be our AI episode that I think is going to kind of go all over the place. But Scott and I promise we are not going to solve the world's ills, and I don't think we're going to change anybody's opinions on what AI is in the gaming space or how it's going to work or influence or demonetize folks or monetize other folks. But that said, we've put together a few of our friends that have some experience in this area to kind of bring together a roundtable and, kind of talk it out. A couple old grogs, just having a conversation.
Yeah. No, I mean, and as far as solving the world's ills, I've already done that. I put it into Chat GPT before we started, so I'll read that off at the end of the episode. So, but no, we are here to have a conversation with friends regarding AI within the gaming sphere. This is not gonna rattle any hinges or cause any uproar. This is strictly a fine conversation to just give opinions on certain things and not get us canceled.
Keep talking. I'm putting this through generative AI technology to come up with some new language to better phrase that for everybody.
Right. Moldy Russell Wart, old melanoma head. So yes, that's
oh God.
All right. So Keith, why don't you introduce our first guest here?
All right. So on my screen, anyways, as I'm looking, is an old friend of mine and game convention organizer, mate of mine. We go back a long way. My mate Shane. Shane, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for the invite. Appreciate being here. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the conversation. It's as I said earlier, I think it's funny, a bunch of old gray hairs talking about the newest AI on the block. I've been dabbled around in it other than game conventions, right? Even back when we were doing game conventions, so while I was working, I was just starting to touch on some of the AI stuff that was coming out there. And I always thought it was really cool and interesting to see where it was going to go in the copywriting and SEO type industries that even back then, I never foresaw it spilling into gaming as much as I did later when I got into writing and blogging. And then the companies I was working for started to use it as blogging tools to enhance their blogging. And oh yeah, this is coming. So here we are having the conversation finally.
Yeah, man. Just for context, two things. So how long ago was that you were kind of beginning in with AI stuff?
I started using a little bit of AI stuff back in about 2019 with Jarvis and a few other AI programs that were just starting to come out that were right around when there was this era around 2019-ish where people were starting to see like sports blogs and things becoming aggregated. I was working with a company that was starting to find out we could take writers and put those writers with with articles that needed to be rewritten on a regular basis to keep them relevant in AI or relevant in like Google searches and stuff for these spider bots and stuff, all other anything. But sites need to be written very often, and people were learning we could start using AI to help us rewrite that content to keep it relevant and keep them high in the rankings on their SEO, and that's fair. Spawned over into that.
Mm-hmm. All right, and then my other thing, and just for context, for listeners, Shane and I talk on the phone regularly, probably once a week or every other week, and the topic du jour every time we chat is AI and its developments in both art sphere and in the writing sphere as it relates to the tabletop hobby, so gaming, role-playing game space. So I just want people to understand that this is something Shane and I talk a lot about. And so it's nice to be able to have the same kind of conversation and bring in two other people, Scott, and then our other guest, who Scott will introduce momentarily, and then have a bigger, wider conversation. So,
well, that's far better than the conversations you and I have, which is usually fiber tablets and sciatica.
Well, that's because we're really old. Have you tried those new fiber tablets?
Yeah,
great for me.
Yeah, it went right through me. In fact, we may have to pause the episode.
So, Scott, who's our other guest?
Our other guest here today is a friend of ours and a friend of the show. I know he's an avid listener. We have also been on his show as guests with him and Bud. But for those who do not know who he is, I would like to introduce today Dr. Miles Dyson. Sorry, wrong one. That's
stop running it through the AI.
No, that's the creator of Skynet. We have Dr. Ian Griffiths, otherwise known to all of his friends who know him as Griff. Griff, welcome to the show. First time on, and hopefully not the last.
Thank you for inviting me. It might be the last. We'll see how divisive I have.
I mean, at this point on, if all you hear in this entire episode is nothing but Shane, and we edit out Griff altogether, then but we will just have Chat GPT fill in the gaps if necessary. But no, definitely thank you. We do appreciate you coming on. Our reasons for having you on is definitely your expertise within the subject. But why don't we let you give a little bit of information about that for the listeners?
Okay, so I studied AI back in the day when it was all fields. So early 90s, I did my PhD in AI. So that was in autonomous guided vehicles. So it was self-driving robots.
Right.
Because I, as a child, I always wanted to create killer robots. It's as simple as that. So I studied AI, and from there, I made the sensible step of moving into the games industry, but not the nice games industry with the pens and the paper and the dice. I moved into the evil one with the pixels and the binary, and the random dice in code. And I was an AI I've been an AI programmer since the early 90s. Nowadays, I write AI, but it's all really benevolent because it's just things running around shooting you or trying to kill you virtually.
Quote unquote, virtually. I mean, baby steps.
Virtually. I mean, who knows? I mean,
benevolent.
I work from home. I don't see my employers very often, so I could be writing, elaborate drone simulations, and on my screen it could appear like, you're running around firing arrows at goblins, but who knows what's going on in the real world?
Right.
I'm scared now.
Well, I mean, as you should be afraid, be very afraid. So the Miles Dyson joke was not too far off.
It's not too far off. Well, I mean, one thing I would say is that I studied my PhD at what was, I'm not going to say it still is, but what was the worst university in Britain before people get too excited. I studied at a place called, it wasn't even a university when I got there. It was Wolverhampton Polytechnic, which was known by everybody that went there as Wally Polly.
Wally Polly.
So Did you program all your AI stuff to always have a little code that says "Don't shoot Griff"?
Yeah. Well, I've had 2 accidents with AI that have put me in hospital.
Oh.
And one that's put somebody else in hospital.
Oh.
Okay, before we carry on this conversation with the rest of our main topic, roundtable, we need to know the details. So carry on.
Okay. Yeah. So I was programming a robot arm to be all intelligent and clever and smart. You know, the sort of thing that works in car factories.
Yes.
Cameras. And the idea was, and this was so high tech at the time, there was a virtual reality suite. And I was coding the AI and the robot in virtual reality, and the real robot was learning to mimic the actions in the simulation.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned a good lesson about debugging because, when you're debugging, make sure that whatever you're programming can't hit you. So it swung. I got a rotation rung in a quaternion somewhere, thought it would rotate clockwise. It rotated the other way and just hit me on the back of the head.
Oh, jeez.
That wasn't.
That'll learn you.
Well,
and the second accident got me, and then because I didn't fix the bug, it got somebody else. Which was I used to create robots that zoomed around the office,
mm-hmm.
In little packs, chasing each other, playing hide and seek and things like that. And they were steering themselves around with cameras. But this wasn't sort of nice, lightweight, clever engineering. It was basically chunks of metal. That they were basically butchered remote control cars.
Oh boy, like battle bots.
I was going to say battle bots. Yeah.
And and one of them raced around, and it came at me, and I was thinking it will stop, but my code for making it stop wasn't very good, so it cracked me on the ankle and took me off my feet, and my right ankle swelled up to the size of a balloon. And then the next day, it did it to my PhD supervisor, and I says, "Yeah, that's what it's doing. That's what it did."
Just proof the robots are going to come and get us eventually.
Right.
It's not yet.
But due to bad debugging, it's no fault of them learning. It's just the fact that, the debugging aspects weren't properly applied. So yes.
It was my stupidity, not their maliciousness.
That's fair. Okay.
And thus was born the 3 robotic laws of Griff. So but yeah, hey, you have, for any good things that come out of technology, you always have to get knocked in the back of the head for your robots to crawl.
No pain, no gain.
Exactly. Oh, well, fantastic. I mean, again, thank you both for giving us your time to pop on here. So we are excited to get into the meat of things. So Keith, let's go ahead and let's go ahead and start this thing off and see where it goes.
All right. Well, I think to lay the foundation of the entire conversation, I think the first thing we need to do is kind of go round the room, round robin, and each of us lay down what, as it relates to tabletop role-playing games, like whether it's art or writing, what we each define AI is. I think that'll give us a foundation from which hopefully the conversation, the rest of it will kind of evolve organically from. So, Shane, how about you do us the honors? For you, what does AI mean to you? Like, how do you define AI?
Well, I come from the background that I have, like we talked about earlier, where for me, I look at AI as it's a tool. I look at AI, especially in the form it is in now with like chatbot GPT and things like that. In Midjourney, maybe something completely different, but going into like the text base, I look at it as an advanced form of a way for me to back and forth and soundboard where if I can't pick up the phone and talk to you, Keith, about an idea for a game that I want to run or an idea that I had to run or a scenario that I'm going to get ready, I can pop on chatbot GPT, ask it say a question or two, give me an adventure along this idea or a scenario or a hook, and it can pop that back at me. And in a large regard, some people get really nervous when they think about that, but I like to point something out. It's always been there. We've always been able to hop on Google and search, pull me up a generator, give me a hooking, some encounter lists, or a D6 generator for loot and stuff. All Chatbot GPT is, it's an advanced way of scraping the internet and giving me that same feedback in a lot of ways. This is kind of how I look at AI in the gaming space.
Okay. Scott, how about you? How do you define it?
There'll probably be a lot of overlap here because I think it's I feel the same way. I mean, first and foremost, I do feel it is a tool. It's only going to do as much as you provide it input to work with. That it is something that a bit of a misconception, because I do feel that a lot of people, when they speak about AI, even in the gaming sphere, is they feel it's a full-blown artificial intelligence that can learn and adapt and evolve without any input. And I do feel that's a misconception, because these tools can learn and adapt, but only with what it has access to. So depending on what these tools have access to, they're only going to provide you with this information that you're asking for. But for the most part, I feel it's the same way. I mean, and again, this is layman's terms. I'm nowhere near, haven't spent any time with it like Shane. Obviously, I have not been working with it like Griff. But my general opinion of it is no different than any other tool out there. It is something that will provide you with as much feedback as you provided information to pull from the sources that it has access to provide you with the answer that you're seeking, whether it be, write me a dungeon, give me a description, make an image for me based on these things. And if no one is there providing with information, it's not doing anything. It's not, it's not slowly evolving into this, this Superman Brainiac type force that eventually is going to remove the necessity for us to continue on doing the things that we do. So in a nutshell, I feel it is just an advanced form of a tool to provide you with resources for you to utilize, but not necessarily remove the work in its entirety. You will still need to adapt what it gives you to whatever it is that you're using. So, and again, could be perfectly wrong, but that's my personal general, perception of it.
Griff, how about you?
I think I might be a Debbie Downer here.
Okay.
I personally, I think that AI is a terrible thing.
Okay.
I shouldn't say that.
No, absolutely.
I'll explain. It's really, really early days. We got to remember, people have been obviously coding and working and refining this stuff for a while, but it's only sort of been publicly available for a little while. And the progress they're making is quite staggering. I mean, just being able to generate an image with Midjourney from prompts, that is mind-blowing that it's able to do it, to me. It's really early days. I'd expect the technology to start moving very, very quickly. I think the start of publicly available AI isn't too dissimilar to the start of the Industrial Revolution, where
I agree.
It was the new common engine, pumping steam mines and cotton machines and the jacquard loom and really, really basic stuff at first. And the Luddites, people like me, went around smashing it up with hammers. And it moved very quickly. In 300 years, we've gone from the new common engine to being able to destroy ourselves with nuclear bombs.
Right.
And robots in the office.
Yeah. I don't think that's the actual threat, though. I think the threat is that these sort of technologies, and we were talking to Scott Dorward the other night, and he raised this point, and he put it really succinctly. I've been trying to explain how to put this into words. These things are very corrosive, and nobody ever really thinks about how it affects people and societies. And so I think while they are tools, and that they are tools at the moment, and they do a certain thing, and there needs to be a certain amount of human input, I do worry, and my opinion changes, on at least a daily basis, if not hourly, whether that will always be the case. That will humans always be able to take what creatively an AI generates and go, you know what, that's nearly there, but not quite there? Or whether eventually it'll be the case of just completely cutting out the middleman. And the thing I would say is, in these sort of fields, I know there's a lot of pushback from people, and rightly so, because, like you said and identified, these things work by stealing. Because, and I mean, an AI is a black box. It's an idiot savant.
Right.
It's trained to do, at the moment, these things are trained to do a specific task very, very well. And to do that, they need two things. And we're moving into the age where these two things exist. One is a lot of computational power, something that we didn't have. We were running things on, 486s and, really.
Did I hear abacus?
Yeah. Well, so we got this vast computational power now, and in fact, some tasks was far off to the cloud, which is a computer in France somewhere. And you delegate the actual processing power. Another thing is vast amounts of data.
Right.
And because people rightly, artists and creators and designers, have been advertising their wares, like putting it up on the internet and providing the words and their pictures, there's this vast amount of information that we all give away to freely on the internet that this thing can harvest. And then you put it into a sausage machine that's really, really clever, and you turn it and it spits sausages out at the other end. And I think the sausages are going to get better and they're going to get worse for people. But on saying all of that, you'd be King Canute, trying to stop the tide, trying to stop this thing, because the one thing that is obvious is the genie's out the bottle.
Right.
And there's no turning it back. There's no. It would be like trying to stop the Industrial Revolution or stopping the start of the information age. We're moving into an AI age.
We're in a tsunami navigating the waters.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an understatement.
And one of the problems is you said here on the show, we're not going to try to solve the woes. There's no time to, because this thing will advance quicker than people can legislate or communities can react and deal with it, and you can't move quick enough. It's gonna.
I think you're absolutely right.
I liken it to the processor, like the Intel processors from 10, 20 years ago, but now we're dealing with AI. We would see every year doubling its ability, and it is doing that we've already seen that it's doing that in less than that. There's AI competition that's come out already that is 80 or 90% of what chatbot GPT was just 4 months ago, that are less than 6 months out. And chatbot GPT's been 3 years or 4 years in the making. So yeah, it's going to get wild before it gets calm.
Yeah, and one thing we have to remember: we're grognards and we're old. And looking around, we've all got the distinctive grey that makes us look like gentlemen. But there's a lot of 18 and 19-year-olds that are seeing this sort of stuff on the internet and going, "Do you know what? I wonder if universities teach this stuff." And of course, there's now universities coming through that are starting to teach these things, and then these young people will eventually be researchers. And there's a lot of fresh energy to come through, and it's going to attract people to it. It's going to attract people who've got a certain kind of brain. So, yeah.
Right.
These things are going to improve, and the kind of people that make these things, because we can't forget, these things aren't like it's not like a genie with a lamp you rub. You don't just rub it. They're really carefully artificed. There's a lot of maths involved. It's going to attract really smart people who are going to find new ways and new things to do very quickly.
Right.
Yeah, I'm rapidly seeing, because of the field that I wander around in and play in with all this AI stuff, constantly get pushed at. Prompt engineering is going to be something that is something very needed and very niche. Someone that can actually look at an AI and go, well, I don't want to just tell it I want an encounter with a goblin in the woods, but tell it I want an encounter with a goblin in the woods at night in a forest. While the players are sleeping and the campfire is there. Now prompt, and now see what that prompt comes out, and you discover, wow, now you're really putting the tool to work.
Right.
Yeah, you see that when you look at the Mid-Journey prompts. I went in and I did do give me a goblin in a cowboy hat because
you can,
because it was great.
Yeah.
But because that I've got sort of limited creative ability and easily pleased.
Mm-hmm.
But you look at some people, and that's a good word for it. Prompt engineers, you go in, wow, that looks like code. That looks like creative code. You've got a little. I put give me a goblin in a hat. I didn't realize you could just go goblin hat. And they go goblin velvet hat, and there's a syntax that seems to work. Right. Gets exactly what they want.
And there's certain people whose minds function at that level, normally, that are becoming these ridiculous prompt engineers, as you said, that are, providing this information, and what's coming out is impressive, to say the least. And
they're like AI whisperers, because obviously it's a black box. They don't really know what's going on in there. And they must be able to learn to coax things.
We're even able now to use the newer versions of chatbot, though, to look at examples of Midjourney, tell Midjourney, look at the prompts that Midjourney gave it, and go, okay, that's what I want an image similar to that. Let me run it through chatbot GPT and say, reword this for me as an elf instead of a goblin. And chatbot will then give you the proper prompts to then feed to Midjourney to give you what you're looking
at. That's meta. That is a Christopher Nolan film. That's clever. I'm impressed with, so it is. It is a tool, but the one thing is we're really clever monkeys. We were the original tool creators and tool makers. So think of all the horrifying things we can do with it.
Yes, absolutely. Right. So,
but it's all they're all tools. So, and like the three of you, I think they're all tools. Right now, I don't think they're going to steal anybody's job. I don't think anybody's going to become AI. I don't want to say experts, but aficionados that are going to make millions doing, AI prompt engineering, although that could happen relatively quickly. But right now, they're tools that people can use. And I know this is something Shane and I've talked about, like the source of the material for the black box, right? For the sausage maker. More so for like Midjourney, some of the graphics side of things, where people are generating these covers for their scenarios or art pieces for their internal page art and whatnot, or even background art for their pages themselves. I know some conversations came up in the early days of when, what is that, maybe 8-10 months ago, when it kind of became a to-do within the role-playing game space, where the prompts are sourced from. Now, I have done a little bit of research, and I know where some of the stuff is sourced from, like Dolly, Midjourney, and all of and some of these other text-based stuff is completely different. We're just talking about the graphic stuff. But do you guys know where the stuff is sourced from?
In the early days, when I say the early days, only a few months ago, we were sourcing a lot of stuff from pretty much anywhere. It would pull it off of people's like artists' pages, literally even game designers' pages. If you didn't have your page coded to where it would block it from being able to be scraped, it would scrape it from anyone and everyone, and it would take everybody's work. And that's why when early would come out, you would actually see signatures of people, or you would see the Shutterstock logo creeping into things. But as people voice stuff, and this is one of the big things that a lot of AIs even come out with, they've started going, well, this AI, I believe it's Photoshop has released an AI art generator now that specifically says we will only use our free work. So you got to decide, as long as when you come to a spot of finding out where your art's being sourced from. If it's coming from all free art, if I'm taking all Renaissance photos or free, or I'm going to a free website that everything's posted for free and I'm generating my art from there, that's where I get into in the RPG category of like in gaming. And like, if I want to sell my stuff, am I still creating and generating legitimate art if I'm using Midjourney and I'm only or my own personal AI program to blend me work that I know is all freemium content is one thing, compared to if I'm making art and I'm going to try and put it on the cover of my RPG book and I need you to put me art from the art style of Boris Vallejo and that's what I want on my cover. That's, now you're just taking a person's inkmanship and making it yours. That's iffy.
Right. But I think, and we're kind of, spinning around the whole ethics aspect of the whole thing. But you're right. It's, as Griff said, it's still relatively in its infancy. And as the technology progresses and people find these flaws, you're going to find people branching out in different and making ethical decisions in regards to that. But there still is, like, for example, like take stock art, right? You when you purchase stock art from any company or any person, you still give them the benefit of the doubt that what they're providing to you is legitimately something that they've either created or it's a commonly sourced material that is shared by all, and you're not going to vet all of this information. You're not going to vet every single one of these hundreds of images. Just like as some of these AI art companies are doing, as they are kind of gatekeeping, so to speak, the images that they're providing, like Adobe, that maybe one or two fell through the gaps, that something may have gotten in there that wasn't part of what they were promising. But does that mean that it's inherently flawed? And that's one of the things that I kind of feel, at least currently now, that the perception of this is people are looking at it as an autonomous group. They're making a wholesale decision on it based on, something that existed a few months ago, and therefore they've written off the whole thing as just, it's unethically able to be utilized in any circles, regardless of what these companies are saying that they're doing. So I don't know. Where they're getting their images from, like you said, is in the beginning was definitely unethical. But
I don't think I'm going to clear up anything for anybody, because there's obviously some unethical practices that have happened. So in my research, I listened to a couple of artists who had done their own independent research, right, on how AI at the time, 10 months ago, was not going to take over the world and take over people's jobs and whatever. And I've read some articles and things like that. So in terms of the art programs, they run off of data sets. They're not out there. Right. When you go put in your prompt engine, you're engineering your prompt, silly goblin, tutu, velvet hat with veil. It's not scraping the internet going to look for examples of things to ones and zeros to go pull for you. It's using a data set. Right. Now, Dolly and Midjourney and whatever the others are out there, they buy data sets from companies out there that create the data sets. Now, where those companies get their data sets, of that it gets questionable. Right. Now, there's one company out there, one organization, I don't recall the name of it. They had created a data set early on, probably now 2 years ago, if not more. Created a data set of imagery. Where they got it from, I don't know, but it was for educational purposes, for research and educational purposes. But this organization had two fronts. There was an educational research side of the organization, and then a for profit, so a nonprofit side and then a for-profit side. And the for-profit side took that data set and was selling it to companies, and I'm not going to say which AI company, graphics company they sold it to, because I don't want to throw shade on one company or another, because I don't know which ones they sold it to at the time. But they were selling the data set that they had created as a nonprofit entity for profit. And that's where it gets a little shady and a little quirky. Now, as time has moved on, you know, and people have artists have voiced concerns. And, you know, I think there was some concern with, what is that big art? DeviantArt? Is that it?
Yes.
DeviantArt, yeah.
Yeah. Where you had to opt in or opt out on their site because they are now generating AI data sets from the art within that's housed on their platform.
Yep.
And you had to either opt in or out. So, you know, data sets are going to continue to be made, and that's how the graphics programs create their ones and zeros to make your, you know, your silly elf or silly goblin in a velvet hat with lace. That said,
I wonder how many silly elves you're going to see and silly goblins with cowboy hats when all this is done. And
we're going to see a bunch.
Get sent.
I made 5 while Keith is talking, so
that's awesome.
Sorry,
but no, I wanted to throw that out there because, you know, Shane had made the comment about, you know, just scraping the internet, but that's actually not the case. It doesn't scrape the internet for graphics. Now, for text, I think that's a little bit different. Where there's like spider bots and all of that stuff that go out and regularly crawl and build data sets from which to work from. But everything, Griff, can you add to that?
Yeah, I was reading. I was told, and I went to where, and it was true that ChatGPT, one of the biggest chunks of data that it's got is the internal emails of the Enron company. which shows you what we're building this stuff on.
Well, shit, we're screwed.
I do believe they scrape a lot of Reddit, because one of the big reasons why Reddit is currently in a blackout topically is because Reddit wants to start charging because they don't want AIs taking all of their data.
Right. It's like an unintended side effect. It's like one of the, you know, I don't think there's going to be a big AI apocalypse, but you're going to have these unintended consequences because a society, which is what Reddit is being inadvertently affected by something external. And the AI doesn't actually have all these pictures. It's turned it into a really complex mathematical data set. But at one point, it was people's art, and it was scraped. And now it's very difficult. If you looked at the data sets, it would be very difficult to find out where did that come from. How did you construct that? I mean, one of the problems with AI is they're awful black boxes. Mm-hmm. You're sort of relying on the output and then clapping it.
Going, I thought the problem was the elongated fingers and having 6 fingers on your hand.
Yeah.
They fixed that.
Well, it's a bit on how, you know, it creates its images from these data sets that it's provided. And obviously, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's kind of like like a reverse engineering process where it kind of deconstructs the image, reconstructs it, and then that reconstruction is what is being provided.
Yes. For
the AI art.
It's the training part of the training cycle. I describe this in words and then take the words and try and paint the picture again. How close does the picture match?
Right. And that's why when you go to Midjourney and you say, you just type in Mona Lisa, you can do that 1,000 times and it will never give you an exact reproduction unless you do something that I learned recently that you can do is when you do like a one-on-one image. You provide it an image and then say, do something to this image. And that's where I think a lot of when you see some of the people who are posting on, on the social media circles where it's like, you know, they do a one-on-one comparison, you can see, you know, that this obviously utilized that. That's not coming from these data sets. Someone is legitimately doing a one-on-one conversion with that image. But where they got that image from could be Google. I mean, you could just go to Google Images, grab that image, put it into the AI machine, and then it will, turn your goblin with a cowboy hat into a goblin with a top hat,
right?
With bigger eyes and a longer nose, kind of thing. And that I think is what kind of is a bit of the foundation for a lot of people's concerns, because all they do is they see these posts and go, holy shit, that girl with the foxtail is exactly the same as the girl with the rabbit tail. They stole that image. And, it's just a bit of a misconception on there to stir the pot and create a lot of the panic that exists out there regarding this. And it's a bit of a fallacy regarding that, but still, regardless of it, it's still piracy, so to speak, but it's not the AI art doing it. It's the ethics of the person who is sitting at that black box telling it to do something.
Well, the people who've created the tech have got past the is this ethical stage.
Yeah.
I mean, so if we think of it like Burke and Hare, the grave robbers.
Yep.
They were not grave robbers.
They were murderous.
They were murderers, and they sold the bodies to the doctors or doctor.
Yeah. So the companies now regard themselves as the doctors. The people that, if you're saying Adobe are doing AI tools and they've got these data sets, but they relied on the bit where people went around robbing graves.
Right. Yeah. Not asking questions. Yeah.
And so it's difficult. It's difficult. So we can now, they've got the sanitized, nice, ethical, PR friendly version of the data sets, but it was all built on this stealing. And if you ask these people, okay, then let's get a magnet and rub it over your servers and delete your data sets, but you've got all this brilliant knowledge, you can restructure it again. How would they do it? They would go and scrape. They'd either buy it from somebody that scraped, or
we've even reached the point now, though, where you can download. We're almost to the point with where you can download on your home computer, and then things like another program similar to Midjourney, Leonardo. And Leonardo allows you to download your own images and upload your own personal data set. So where you could go, I'm now sourcing my own art, putting it into this program, and now I'm going to be able to create art from potentially my artist team that I had do it, but I need different poses and positioning, and I can use my own data set. So there are also, we've come to a point where we can start now ethically going, with a limited resources, I might now be able to start making my own art legitimately and keep it on brand of whatever, like in the realm of role-playing games, my fantasy nation, and this is the armor and arms and garbs and heraldry that they use. And then when I want to use the next one, I can pump in similar art pieces and do stuff like that and build data sets that way too. So it's coming a long way. Like, it was built on the bones of bad in some respects, but there's a lot of good that is going to come from it.
Right. So I mean, and when you talk about that, but what you describe there realistically is no different than what can be done in Photoshop. It's just quicker. It's quicker and more efficient. But no one is shouting for everyone to remove or uninstall Photoshop. I could grab an image right now from Google. I can manipulate it to the point where you really wouldn't recognize it, and then boom, there you go. Which occurs quite a bit.
I would also go as far as saying it's maybe not quicker. If you know how to draw a goblin in a cowboy hat, you might be better off than drawing a goblin in a cowboy hat. But if you want to tell an AI, draw me a goblin in a cowboy hat sitting by a fireplace, because it might just turn out that you've got to refresh that thing 1,000 times before you're going to get the right piece. So it involves a little bit of give and take. You have to sometimes go, yes, I accept the piece you gave me. I want it. But if I can't write or draw, like, I'm incapable of drawing, I just suck at it, this liberates me and gives me the ability to draw in a sense.
So with that, I'm going to pose a question here for everyone. So the kickback, right? So there's been quite a bit of kickback from, the hobby, more so regarding the art. There's a bit of kickback regarding the text creation side, but that really hasn't hit home yet. It probably will soon.
Oh, it's hitting home.
Right. But obviously when it started to pick up, I forget the name of it, but there's an infamous book that was being sold several months ago that was made exclusively with AI art and titled itself as such. That, for whatever reason, when it dropped, it didn't cause a bit of a stir. But then as the AI art thing started to pick up,
Mask witches.
it was kind of fingers were being pointed at it as this is an example of what's going to ruin our hobby. It's going to put all the artists out of business, and all the creators are now being flagged as too cheap to go out and fund real artists for their role-playing games, for their books, for their creations and whatnot. And thus the backlash started to occur. And it's to the point now where people are generating stickers and signs to put on their books. No AI art involved. Humans only. People are
human created art only. There's all kinds of
people are putting it into their contracts, like Chaosium and other companies are putting in there that if you are providing us art, if you're selling us your art or you're creating for us, you have to essentially promise us in this contract that this is not AI generated. But do you and to be fair, it is somewhat, it's warranted, right? I'm not saying that these people are coming from a bad place, but do you feel that maybe a lot of the initial kickback and the, for lack of a better term, the wringing of hands and clutching of pearls over that, do you feel it maybe has been a bit over exaggerated, or do you feel that that these are hills that a lot of these creators should be dying on regarding AI art?
Well, I think people are rightly worried.
Mm-hmm.
I think any kind of new technology, especially if it's clever, is disruptive. It will sort of. It's like throwing a hand grenade into a room. We can cut that. I think of a better metaphor, but it is. So people are up in arms, and there's because I think even if subconsciously, I think they know just how big a threat this is.
Okay.
And like we've said before, there will be other people, the people who can utilize this thing as tools.
Mm-hmm.
It's very good and warranted to put on the cover of a role-playing book completely generated by humans.
Mm-hmm.
And that will attract a certain kind of purchaser.
Right.
How many people, what percentage of the people that buy role-playing books go, I only buy things with that sticker?
Right.
It's the same, probably the same percentage of people who buy, craft artisan bread and then just get a loaf from sort of the deli or the supermarket.
Right.
So yeah, I think people are rightly worried. I think I do have sympathies with people. I can understand the pain.
Mm-hmm.
But really, I think the market will decide which way things go. KSM are very good in taking steps in creating these contracts and publicizing. That's really good.
Mm-hmm.
But there'll be a lot of companies that don't, and there'll be a lot of new companies that don't. And so artists that can use the technology and are prepared to, and it's, they might have to hold their nose to do it. And like Shane said, can composite a scene very quickly and then do their own stuff over the top of it. Right. Those are probably going to be the artists that can ride the wave and potentially guide the way this goes.
Mm-hmm.
I think there is room for, and it is right that there is the room for the artisan role-playing game. This thing is made by humans that care, and
mm-hmm.
I would buy that stuff. But there
are you could even warrant charging more,
and charging more. Yeah, charging
mm-hmm.
a premium. We charge a premium. We charge because things that are made by humans are better.
Right.
Really, they are at the moment. But this is made by humans, and you pay a premium for it because it's human labor. in the same way you might pay an extra $1 for a bottle of really good artisan beer and not the mass produced
or
rubbish.
IPAs.
Yes.
Sorry.
So where I have a different stance in some regards to where Griff is. I agree the idea of the artisan, this is an artisan product. I believe that you should be able to go, humans did this and I paid artists to do this. So I'm going to actually, I'm asking for a little bit more for my product. But I also look at a different angle where I go, well, there's a lot of people out there that want to make a role-playing game or want to get into the industry, but they can't afford even to go to Fiverr and pay for 20 illustrations to put in their role-playing game. And we are, let's be honest, even grognards, we are a group of RPG players that when we open up something, we want it to look good. We want it to be well laid out. We want some art in every couple pages so that we can see those things and it appeals to us. And if I need to have that pressure to create something to be impressive, but I can sit down myself on Midjourney or Bing AI, and I can create a couple NPC pictures for each of my NPCs, and maybe a piece of cover art that maybe I'll either decide I don't have enough money to pay for my cover to give as an example to a writer to an artist to draw for me, going, I made this cover art. Can you draw this for me? Because this is the idea I'm looking for as a reference piece, which would be amazing. But maybe I can't even afford that. But I at least got that and go, all the art was AI generated because I'm living on a budget and these are hard times. So I'm on the fence with both. So I see the benefit of saying, yes, this was all created by humans. And I went out and I contacted my friends and I think you should pay a little bit more of a premium. We'll use DriveThruRPG as an example. Maybe I'm asking $5 for my game instead of 99 cents. But maybe I'm only asking 99 cents for my game because I knew I couldn't pay an artist and I'm just trying to get enough so maybe I can make something to pay some artists for.
Right.
Yeah. I got a new role playing game, and it's a thing of exquisite beauty, which is Sarah Newton's Lair of the Leopard Empress, I think it's called. And the art there is generated up front. It says this was generated it was initially generated by an AI, and then it was composited, altered, changed by an actual human. And the difference was, I think you get this. It is a beautiful book. It's a revised version of Monsters.
Okay,
and really good. One artist got pay out of it. It's like you're saying, there could have been 0 artists, but one artist got pay out of it, and I don't think the product would have been as cheap or to be that pretty, if that makes sense. So there probably is a spectrum to this of pure human, and that's attractive for a certain reason, and pure AI, and that's attractive and maybe repellent to some people for a certain reason. And then artists that can use it as a tool, that can go, sketch me out 90% of this stuff. Because to be honest, when you go and paint a watercolor, half the time people are putting, before they start painting, they're putting yellows and blues and oranges on the. That's the bit that you want to leave the art. That's the bit that you want the computer to do, the AI to do, and then a human touch upon the top. And whichever way it goes, the thing is, we lived in an artisan age, and now we're moving out of it. So people need to adapt because the artisan market probably is going to be smaller.
Right.
No, those are all fair points. So I would like to add, so DriveThru requires any publisher that uses AI art to put a statement on the advert for the game, the elevator pitch, and in the product. It is required to state that the product contains some or all of the art has been AI generated in full or in part. There's some like boilerplate statement they have to include. If they do include AI art and do not include that statement, and they are found out about, DriveThru's policy is to boot them from the platform forevermore. Now, I haven't heard of anybody getting booted yet. It's still early days, right?
That's a good policy, because it is like checking the ingredients on anything you eat.
Right.
Is this actually kosher? Is this halal? People have got the right to know.
Right.
I think there's two concerns to mention there. One, also, it is worth stating that if you don't markedly alter any AI generated art, the current rules legally for copyright say that if you didn't significantly alter it in some way, it's non-copyrightable, which means somebody could then take your cover art and go, I really like that, I'm going to use it on mine.
Right, but let's be clear for listeners, though. That is in the U.S. That is not in any other country.
Right.
True. And then the last thing is the other concern that I sometimes worry about, that is valid with what you just said about I want to produce something on DriveThruRPG, and I need to state it was AI generated art, and I go out and I legitimately pay someone and say, hey, I need you to make me some art. And what happens when we find out 6 months, a year later, that the contracted artist I paid generated all my art? Now who's at fault, me or my artist? Or do I need to keep tabs and prove that I can prove to DriveThruRPG, hey, I paid an artist to draw this, and I didn't know till somebody found it out myself. And you guys told me that the art was generated, and I had no idea.
That's good. That's a very good.
Right.
That's the Burke and Hare principle.
Right. Yeah, you made up a good point, because you had mentioned Fiverr, and they're running into similar issues. People are buying art from artists that are supposed to be handmade, and come to find out that these are AI generated images that they're paying for, and we're told that this was not the case. And you're right, but I mean, that's an issue. There's also the fact that let's be perfectly honest, the fact that any RPG that claims this was generated by AI art, at least in the current situation with how everything is not just informative, but it's also a stigma to them. And that's another question of, is that something that is fair, so to speak? I mean, you can almost guarantee by the fact that you have, even in any capacity, not this is all AI generated, but hey, those NPCs in there, those aren't real people. I had Midjourney create them. And you have to state that that's AI art. There's people that will, regardless of how wonderful your game is, it could be the best goddamn game that's ever been created. Mm-hmm. They're not going to give it the time of day, because that stigma currently exists, and it's being enforced by many of these companies. And I personally feel that that's a that's a bit of a sticky wicket, so to speak, because it's putting the moral aspect into it. It's not the artistic integrity of it. I mean, it should be looked at with artistic integrity, but the fact that this person utilized AI art, they're overlooking that, and they're considering that person is morally bankrupt or inept. And that shouldn't be the case. And I believe that's an unfair situation that's being generated by a lot of the negative feedback that's coming from this.
Well, I agree, but I think that's a lot that is generated as a byproduct of the fear mongering,
right,
from the artist community. Now, I heard in a radio piece earlier this week or late last week, as of this recording anyways, about this very topic, as far as when in the US, when we used to have telephone operators would actually manually switch, right? Mm. And when manual switchboard operators became obsolete and a primitive computer system, switchboard system, could do it for them, the fear was all of these operators now being obsolete were, put out by technology, right? Artists are now feeling put out by AI technology. But what they found through studies, over the decades now, so many years later, right? 80, 90, 100 years later, that the operators, the vast majority of them, were able to find reemployment with ease the one and adapt to the change. It was the ones the older, because these were almost exclusively an industry for women at the time. It was the older women found it harder to find reemployment, and more of that was probably they attributed two things: ageism, which sucks, and older people found it harder to adapt to the change itself, that they had been made obsolete. Now let's look at that in terms of artists and AI, right? And again, we're not solving anything and probably going to irritate some people, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But that's not our intent. I think the younger generation of gamers and artists are okay with the change in mode of creation and technological advances. It's at least what I'm seeing in my spheres in the various social media platforms is it's the older folks, I'm going to say older, but it's not necessarily old, like let's just say 35 plus crowd. But the older you get, the more noise is coming from the even older folks.
I think, I can sort of see maybe one of the reasons why. I mean, I think there's two things there. The first part is younger people are normally better suited to handle disruptive technology.
Right.
Well, they live a life of technology.
Yeah, there's people out there now who are 12.
Look at all of our kids.
Yeah, and they're going to go on to become the game designers and game writers and game authors of the future, and people working in the role-playing industry, and they're going to be coming into an AI age. So they're going to have a different tolerance for AI tools. They're most likely they're going to be the people that hijack it and work out how to do cool things with it. So younger people. But the thing is, it's not all bad being old, because the one reason maybe that grogs and people above 35, because they're lucky enough, most of them, to have a mortgage and a job,
right?
And they know how hard things are. So I feel a lot of sympathy for artists, because I know how difficult it is to make a buck. Young people don't have to worry about that until they leave home. And it's even more horrific for them nowadays than I've got it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think there's two strands. I think partly younger people are going to be more comfortable with this and they're going to adapt to it. Older people have probably got an understanding of how disruptive this is going to be to people's life. It's not just a question of ethics. We all know what it's like to lose jobs.
Yeah.
And have to retrain and have a skill that you love, something that you are good at, that you want to be paid for, because that's the best kind of jobs are jobs that you do something that you love, that you're good at, that people clap you for, and you get paid money for it. That's being taken away from people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of the fear lies, that I see with the artists. And again, like I said, it's generally older artists, the older voices.
Right. Established. They're established within the hobby too.
Right.
It's a level of adaptation.
Right.
It's a level of adaptation. One of the things that calmed me down a lot with this is also you take into the grand scope of what's going on. You have it's the pace this is moving at that's really scaring a lot of people. But for me, I've seen it, and like Griff has seen it since the 90s. I've seen it since 2019. We've seen it unfold, so we're a little less freaked out by it. We've seen it when it was it was simpler and way more stupid than it currently is. But then, like, I see one of the people I watched a video on not too long ago was an artist from Disney who had like drawn for Pocahontas and several other big Disney movies. And he made a comment. He was like, when a lot of this video filtering and stuff came out, I panicked at first. And he was like, but then I learned it's just another tool. People just need to take a breath, relax, and understand that as you know, it's going to be, it has the potential to be disruptive, but we can also set the tone on how disruptive it's going to be. We can help in by just looking into it a little bit more. There's a lot of people out there that, I mean, I was just watching a video this morning of a guy talking to chatbot GPT, and whenever chatbot would give him a response, he'd be like, well, I'm going to, you know, tell it, thank you for this response. That was very helpful. I really appreciate it. Chatbot don't care about that. It doesn't understand. But there are people that are looking at these programs and they're going, it's so smart and it's so intelligent. And that is part of the problem. Some people are looking at it like it is a magic box when it's not a magic box. It's, as Griff put it, it's a black box and it's kind of stupid.
I think the other reason older people might be a bit, because we can draw. We've been. It's only because we've been around longer. There's nothing special about being old. You were born earlier. We've been through the disruption of the information age.
Right.
I mean, I was a very early adopter of the internet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Mosaic, chat rooms, talking to people in Australia about Blur and thinking I was all high tech, sort of back in the very early 90s.
Yahoo Messenger.
Oh, Sierra Online. I mean, just pure chat rooms, you know.
IRC.
Yeah.
Back in the day when you would get an AOL disc in the mail every day for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the information age has given us a lot of cool things. I mean, we are talking. You got three. I'm facing three lovely, distinguished looking gentlemen, and I'm chatting to you in America. I'd never have met you, really. Mm-hmm. You know, I wouldn't have got to know you pre-internet. Yeah. But at the same time, we've got all the rest of the absolute sewer that is the internet out there that is corrosive and horrible and a layer of terribleness. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the early promise, well, there's things that are really cool about it, but I think the internet is net negative. The industrial age, brilliant. I couldn't go and visit my friend in the next city because, you know, I haven't got a pony. Oh, I'll get a train. And now we've killed the planet. You know, It's just the extrapolation of what we've done.
Right.
So with AI, I think there will be, I mean, it will cure cancer eventually. It will solve some of the most difficult maths problems because, you know, it's got all day and it's an idiot except for one thing, which is, you know,
what it's trained to do. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there will be some positive parts of AI in how it will affect role-playing games. I think there will be some things that you go, this is really cool. We couldn't have done that before. It's too time-consuming. I don't have those particular skills, and I need to be part of a team, and it's the rest of the team. But you know, my gut instinct, and because it's moving that fast, none of us can make predictions.
Right.
You can rely on history, and history tells us that a lot of the stuff that humans invent is horrible.
So I have a question for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
AI DMs and using AI in creating game in like running games and stuff. Have you used it? What do you think about it?
So that is a fantastic topic. But what we will do is as we kind of wrap up our conversation, which has been focused on AI art, we're going to take a little quick break here, and then we will come back and roll into that aspect along with the generation of modules and writing, which is a different side to the AI art or to the AI conundrum within the hobby. So listeners, we will be right back. Hello, listeners. Scott here, and I hope you are enjoying this episode of Titterpigs. Do you know that we're now monetized on Spotify? That's right. For as little as 99 cents a month, you can help sustain future episodes and other special events. All you need to do is go to our Spotify homepage, click the About section, and there you will find the support link, or click the link in the description. Know that Keith and I really appreciate any support we get from our listeners, no matter if it's a bit of pocket change or simply sharing Titterpigs with other people. And now, back to the episode.
Shane had asked right before we went to break about using AI as your surrogate dungeon master.
Yeah, no. And so coming back to your question, Shane, I have played around with, I think it's, literally called like AIGM.com or whatever the website might be. And it's interesting. But it's at least the ones I play with, it's not groundbreaking. It essentially, to me, it felt like I'm essentially playing a game of Zork, just something that is providing a bit more information. But if you want to talk about an idiot box, the couple AI GMs that I play with does tend to be a bit where you're going, what am I doing here? What's going on? So it's interesting, but I haven't dived into it to any degree and haven't utilized it. So how about you? Have you gone further than just the surface level scan of it all?
I haven't gone too much beyond as far as like having chatbot run a game for me. Mm-hmm. But I have, when I really started getting into like the playing around with the chatbot GPT, and then like the Bing and all the wars come out, started really leaning into, hey, create me an encounter for tonight. I want to see what you can do. And that's really where it starts stretching its legs and actually can be a pretty creatively impressive tool as a DM. And depending on what one you use, you get a lot of interesting results. Bing is our chatbot GPT is very good at creating you like a D&D encounter. It understands the 3 acts, it understands 5-room dungeon design. Mm-hmm. And if you tell it to do that, you can prompt it with those things and get very good results. Mm-hmm. Right down to details for NPCs and suggested monster encounters, all kinds of crazy stuff. Mm-hmm. So it's very good at that. Bing, on the other hand, is pretty terrible at it, which is kind of funny. Or not Bing, sorry, Bard. Bard is pretty terrible at it. And then another one that is actually blows me away is Discord itself has an AI. Discord has a bot called Clyde AI that they're in the alpha process of using, and I happen to be lucky enough to get invited to test him. And boy, I put him through his paces, and he is scary. That AI is scary good at its creativity when it comes to certain things, as far as that goes, which is pretty neat.
Right. Yeah, I've tried some of the scenario generators or encounter generators, and some are fairly good, and others literally all they're doing is replacing goblin with alien, traveler with D&D, and it almost gives you the exact same results, but it's still functioning within the scope of the genre. I mean, but still it still kind of provides you the same results, just with a little bit of genre intensive things. And if it has it in there, some, not all of the mechanics of the game. And I guess, again, that falls into the same question of, in regards to AI art. If you're just using it for personal use, to supplement your game with your players, is there anything wrong with that? But then we start rolling into kind of what has begun, and as Keith mentioned, it's already started, is people utilizing this to write their scenarios, their adventures, their books that are then going to be published. And that to me, that stretches beyond my just conception of it all, because I'm more, when it comes to role-playing games, I'm more of an art guy. I love my maps, I love the art. That's the first thing that I focus upon within that. The writing within the game, to me, is kind of secondary, as long as it's something I can read relatively well. I'm dyslexic, so I read a different way and I absorb information a different way than a normal reader would. So I'm more focused on, format and layout and things that, allows me to read it, more proficiently than other games. But as far as the content is concerned, I don't really, look at something that, if you spit out something from a AI generated program, I don't know if I would be able to tell the difference, than what is being handwritten and created by people. That opens up a different Pandora's box that I feel is a separate argument from the AI art situation. So, comments or anything on that?
Yeah, well, it is different. It is. I think the idea of generating ideas is going to be a challenge to detect and police through, drive through RPG, because as GMs we all do it. I mean, who hasn't reskinned Seven Samurai to create their own? All right, it's fun. It's fun. The fun bit is actually taking Seven Samurai and fitting it to something that's not samurai.
Right.
Obviously, they did it with the Magnificent Seven, which is one of the best films ever made.
Yep.
And I've done it with a Western. I've reskinned it into another Western. I've done it as a space game. So if you say, give me a plot synopsis of a really cool role-playing adventure based on the Seven Samurai, set in northwest England in the 1980s, with vampires.
Yeah.
Well,
Sold.
that's what GMs do. That's what GMs do. It's going to be really difficult to police that sort of thing.
Right.
And I wonder how many role-playing authors and role-playing designers could we identify just from the words?
Oh,
just from their text. I can't. I can think of maybe one.
Yeah.
I can think of one designer where I can look at their text and go, I know who wrote that. And that's because they've got a certain way of talking.
Right. I mean,
so
Tingleverse is distinct.
Yes, it is. It is very distinct.
So it is,
especially on Ram Ranch.
but there again, if you're using it for personal use, that is amazing, because when I was younger and I used to play 7 days a week, 10 in the morning till 10 at night in the summer holidays, I had a voracious group, and I would literally be writing the scenario in my head on the way to the house and just trying to remember it, and then busking it when I got there. In the sort of days where time is a limiting factor for a lot of people. A lot of people aren't very confident as GMs and think, well, they might know when they see it that it sounds cool, but wouldn't be able to think it. I think there's definitely room there. And to be honest, it's unstoppable that people are going to use these sort of tools.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They're going to use them. So Shane and I met the other day. I stopped by Shane's house, and because I wanted to show him a video. I wanted to watch this video with him because I had already seen it. And I'm not going to mention the site because I don't want to encourage people to go use it. But there is this company out there who has an AI platform that is built off of ChatGPT-4. And what it does is, based off of you put in some initial prompts, it will help you create a novel from start to finish, all the way from putting in very, very broad brushstrokes, high-level prompts, the prompt engineering, to the point of generating your characters, your story beats, and everything. And then it will generate your prose for you. Now, you can massage it all the way from point A to point Z. However, the more you massage it, and build, take what it generates, the generative part of it, and then massage it and rewrite it, rework it, have it regenerate things based on your inputs. And then you get to the story beats of a traditional novel, and then have it generate your prose. I think Shane and I were in agreement the other day that most people at that point would probably not do too much hand massaging on the prose at that point, if they felt their work up until that point was a collaborative effort between themselves and the AI platform. And that's a scary prospect.
Right.
I think it's a great tool, but I also think it's a scary prospect and this is where Keith I can't put my finger on it, when it comes to writing, because I'm a freelance editor too, right? So when it comes to writing, where does the writer stop becoming the writer and the AI actually become the writer?
That is a really hard question.
Right.
Partly because
separate from art. Let's keep it separate from
absolutely.
art.
Like on the free side, to give an example, if I've been running a game for a Discord group now that are fairly new players for about a year and a half. And about 5 or 6 months ago, just as an experiment, because I've been running one shots, monster of the week kind of one shots. Every other encounter I've been doing for about the last 6 months, I've been prompting with a chatbot to help me create something, prompt it, and see if anybody catches on. And I'll tell you, between my years of experience as a DM and using and knowing how to massage the chatbot, I have come up with adventures that no one has ever called me out on. Which is very implicative if you talk about when we go to the professional side, and I want to start writing things professionally. But that is way not even in the realm of touching what Keith showed me today. If I'm discussing with chatbot, one of the big problems with chatbot and a lot of the current AIs is your character limit and your character count. After about, I think it's 30K or so words, chatbot kind of loses its mind and starts telling you all kinds of weirdness. So that really makes it hard to write a role-playing game product. The thing that we were looking at basically stored all of your brainstorming steps, your characters, the outline, the narrative, the chapter, the beats, and then placed it into now I'm going to write your prose. But since I know I lose my way after a certain number of characters, I'll only limit my chapters to being so long to fit within my prompt. And then all of my prompt generation that I would normally have to re-put in if I was going step by step in a chatbot program that wouldn't be this one, it's all saved. And now I just go, let me click chapter 2. And here's all the prompts and the story beats for chapter 2. And that's something very, very concerning, because now you've found a way to massage your way around the about 8-page limit of content that you're usually able to get a chatbot to stay on track for at the moment. But even then, as the processing power gets better for these systems, we're going to be to where chatbot GPT-5 is going to be able to do 60 or 70,000 prompts, word prompts.
Wow. Yeah, it's so from a professional standpoint, right? Yeah. I mean, it's crazy what the writing platforms will do. You know, GPT-4 and some of these others out there that are more tool than fully creative. Like some of them are generative. They'll take what you've written. Like I tested it out the other day. I took a paragraph from one of my blog articles that I had previously published forever ago, and I went through it myself and I said, okay, I still like this. I would make a couple of changes now that it's, been 2 years hindsight, right? And I threw it into this generative AI, and it gave me a suggestion on how to reword it to have the same intent, but with a little bit different language. To me, from a professional side, as a blogger and as an editor, I see that as a tool.
Okay.
Just like an artist might use on the art side, Dolly or wherever, to generate some prompts for them to go, ooh, that's cool. I like that as an idea. Now let me go over here to my art program or start hand sketching it out, like using it as a just what it is, a prompt, right?
Huh. Yeah, I think so. But again, these things are developing so quickly. Now it's a tool. Mm-hmm. Eventually, it'll be so sophisticated a tool that somebody could, within a day of starting writing and a day of reading, say the DMG and the Player's Handbook, will be able to create a game. It's more than a tool then, because it means it's the ultimate. It's it is the genie in the bottle, and that becomes a little bit worrying. And we were talking about this the other day, me and Bud, because we talk about AI stuff a lot as well. One of the problems is, at the moment, it's a fairly big market, the role-playing game. If you look at how many products are out there, there's a lot of them. There's a lot. And it's a lot more difficult now than, say, when we started picking out the gems. Everybody knew the gems. If you went to your friendly local game store, if you went to visit sort of Nîmes and looked around, there is all the good stuff. You go to drive-through RPG and start browsing, and there's 35,000 variations on 5e.
Right.
The trouble is, when you make it so that it's not a tool, it's something that goes off and does things for you like a genie. There's going to be a lot more than 30,000 on there. There's going to be millions of perhaps average to very good stuff. And the difficulty, I think, is going to be that the artisans, already it's difficult for a product to get heard. Sometimes people do an amazingly big Kickstarter and it grabs everybody's attention.
Right.
But for that, there's 1,000 things that come out that people have never heard of. Some of it, amazing stuff. So the difficulty is you're going to be swimming in a sea. That's the difficulty.
Apologize. I was really chomping at the bit because Keith and I had this exact conversation the other day.
Yeah, we did.
And for me, I see it as a double-edged sword on some aspects. It is we are going to get mired down. We're going to get mired down by a lot of people that are just seeking a buck. We're going to get mired down by a lot of people that are just going to hit a prompt and publish it. But I also see, and maybe it's because I've got rose-tinted glasses, and I've used things like Jarvis, which we back in the day, which was generative prompt. Let me help you write faster and produce content quicker. And I have this philosophy that I hope deep down that what we're going to see in the end is it will allow good, solid writers to be able to produce quality content at a faster pace and even better production because they won't be as slowed down and inhibited in areas where maybe they're having to wait on an artist, if we go back to the art thing, or they're not as good as layout. They can put their text through a chatbot program and go, can you please edit and lay this out for me? Sorry, Keith, don't mean to put your job on the chopping block here, but
no, that's fine.
These are aspects that some people won't go to Keith and ask Keith to do things because they, yet again, may not have the buck to do it. Oh, yeah. So they may be able to put something out or just produce better and more quality. And hopefully maybe we find a few extra gems. My other bit of wishful thinking is, as much as you're going to see the market get pushed a little bit more with people that are going to want to try and make a buck, even going to chatbot and saying, let me make make me an adventure, then help me put out a PDF. These are steps that not a lot of people are going to want to actually always do. So I hope that it's just going to improve the quality of some of the crap that's out there and make it better than crap and make it mediocre.
I hadn't thought of it like that. I mean, I hadn't thought, but yeah, okay. But I think the thing is, I agree broadly with your point. I think it's a really good point. You will get people that can take a gem and polish it. You will take people who wouldn't know how to cut a diamond being able to cut a diamond. But these things are good if the market doesn't expand. Raising the quality of items is very good in a limited market. But you aren't going to see the gems amongst the thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of counterfeit stuff.
Fair.
Unless somebody like Drive-Through, which I'm sure they'll be considering, might come up with some kind of way of rate limiting authors and products. Because when you can knock a role-playing book out in a week, when you can be that prolific with AI tools, you could probably detect when somebody's doing this. And there will be tools. There will be tools that can take text and read it and go, I know this is AI generated.
Okay, so let me add to that, because this website that I'm not mentioning names, because Shane and I looked through some of its stuff, and I can't find it on their website right now to quote it precisely, but I believe it says it cites having like a 98 or 99% rate of being plagiarism free.
Plagiarism free is one thing, but there have been Chatbot GPT themselves, not the same program we're talking about. So that's why I used it. Chatbot GPT themselves announced about 3 or 4 months ago that they've already developed programs where you can have the company itself run what you've put through, and it can tell you if it was generative text with a fair bit of certainty. The worry about that is we know that a professor did that about 3 weeks ago. He ran his entire class through Chatbot GPT and asked Chatbot if it wrote all the everybody's prompts in their theses, and it said it wrote every single one, which is not the case. So that is early stuff, but we're also seeing that there are people that are going, we need to develop some safeguards for that stuff.
Right.
Yeah, and the trouble is we have this conversation is bubbling up in Britain. Our prime minister has become an AI expert. I mean, no, he has. That's his big thing. Is AI. He likes to go out and talk about AI because
is that like Al Gore inventing the internet?
Yeah,
that's your new Al Gore.
He's a tech bro, and he can talk like a tech bro to tech bros. Everybody claps him, and he talks about. So it was one of the things. He went to see your president. He went over to your fine country and met your president.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things he really wanted to talk about was Britain taking the lead in creating safety rail guards to protect against the malicious uses of AI. Now, I don't know if you know much about British politics. I guess it's much the same as American politics, but to legislate for stuff takes months. I mean, you want to get a law onto the law books and deal with the situation, and people are arguing about it. It has to go to our House of Lords, where our bishops vote on it because of our political system, and then come back to the House, and then go back to the House of Lords and back. It's going to take years, and this stuff is incrementally improving in quality or doubling in quality every 6 months.
Well, shit, by the time they walk it from one end of the Houses of Lord to the other, it's going to change 4 times.
It's going to be 4 times better. So
yeah, it's going to be a continental land movement trying to chase a jet. It's never going to keep up.
It's a genie at the bottle. Legislating for this stuff is going to be very difficult when it comes to protect authors and the integrity of the product space, role-playing games that we want to buy. That's going to be a challenge. And I think the tools and the technology and the way people use it are going to outpace our ability to preserve that, if that makes sense.
No, I mean it makes sense to me.
So,
and determining at what level do you have to provide content to be original compared to I worked with an AI, or do you just stick a sticker on it and go, this product was produced, with the assistance of an AI, and just shrug your shoulders and go, that's the best we can do, because anything else we can't be sure of at any point because the writing quality is so good.
Eventually, it's going to be like a Scout's promise.
Right.
It's gonna be people choosing to do it. And we were talking earlier on about stigma. There is a stigma.
Mm-hmm.
The stigma will pass. Whether people are rightly outraged, because we could talk about this in general terms, but this affects specific people, and we shouldn't forget that. But the next generation of people that come on, they won't see it as a stigma. So I think eventually we are going to have to get used to the fact that there probably will be a lot more AI generated content, and possibly AI generated by content by people, who couldn't write a page of stuff,
right?
With very, very limited creative skills.
And that may show through initially because without having that creative writing skill, what they see is coming out. They're not going to have the ability to go, oh, this is shit.
That's it. Yeah.
But that may change over time to where, like you said, you won't be able to know the difference. But I'm curious about the fact that, any good writer out there, well, not necessarily game designers, but any good novelist that you all enjoy have a distinct voice that they have cultivated over time. You could, if you're reading a Stephen King book, it's Stephen King. If you're reading a Cormac McCarthy book, it's Cormac McCarthy. As these people generate these things over time, is there going to be a distinct voice, or is it going to be just, you'll be able to tell it's AI generated just because there's no voice. It's just pure content. And I don't know if will change over time, because when that occurs, then, like you said, the genie's completely out of the bottle, and it's no longer the typewriter, it's the author, and then the person who is standing there is the typewriter. They're the ones that are just, they're following the AI, giving it prompts, while the AI is creating this
right
work.
And that's where for me, that's where I'm at this point in time, where AI is, at least on the writing side. Like I said it before, where does the artist or the author cease to be the creator? Where is that line? And that line is still relatively distinct right now, but it is getting blurrier and blurrier as the AI technology evolves.
A lot harder than the AI art. I mean, you can tell, at least currently now, that, to a general degree, that, oh, this is AI art. And I'm not talking about the fingers, but there's still telltale signs.
Lighting, lighting and perspective and stuff. It has, it hasn't mastered a lot of that.
But with the writing,
if you know what you're looking for a little bit,
right.
There were a few months ago when you would give AI a prompt and you would ask it a certain thing. And even still to this day, I know that certain AI programs that I've used, I'll give them prompts and I will see it always use the same go-to one or two sentences. Mm-hmm. And I go, aha, all of you, no matter which one, all three of you, the AI ones that I'll teach, or not teach, but that I've used, that have been taught, they've been taught
right.
to respond certain ways, and they almost all, because most of them are based off chatbot GPT,
right.
Those data sets, it will very often use the same few keywords every now and then if you know what you're looking for. Right. So hopefully we'll still see some telltales in there. But then if you have someone like me who's maybe written for a little while, who doesn't want you to know, I can see that, and I can then go, I'm going to go ahead and remove those portions.
Right.
Yet again, we're talking about, or how honest is your writer going to be? That's some of the things we have. I think we just have to come to terms on what level, do we accept that we're going to be reading art by artificial intelligence, reading content by artificial intelligence a lot sooner than we realize. Most of us, as someone who worked in the industry for like social media and blogging and copywriting content, I can tell you we've already been reading a lot of it. You don't even realize it.
Right. Yeah. So I think right now, though, the current focus is, whereas, in the artist aspect, we need to create a flag, humans only, no AI art. I would say we need to create one for, the actual writing of the adventures and the games and the scenarios, human editors only. But the problem with that is as we all know, editors aren't human. So what do we do in that instance?
I am not human.
Also, we could put these blurbs. We could put these blurbs in the front. But do you remember in the old days when you had people like Douglas Adams?
Mm-hmm.
May he rest in peace.
Yeah,
I mean, with a man with a distinctive voice that
absolutely
that people have copied ever since.
Yeah.
But they used to put at the start of the books, they would explain what word processor they used and what word package they used.
God, yes.
It was a thing. And I used to read it going, oh, because Douglas Adams used famously Macs, didn't he? He was a big pusher of the Macintosh. Eventually, that thing will become, the front page of every book's got the legal stuff and a little logo and where the printers are. Nobody reads that. Nobody reads it. And eventually, I think as there will be a certain kind of person that looks for those sort of marquee marks or those marks of quality. I'm worried that the larger market won't, and eventually it'll just become
much like the parental advisory stickers of music back in the day. You know, those were the ones that you don't care what it was, you gravitated towards. And they don't. That's not there anymore, as far as I know. I mean, I haven't bought a CD in God knows how long, but I think that's gone the way of the dodo also. But when I was 13, 14, and that AC/DC Back in Black had the parental advisory sticker on there, it's like I'm buying this without question.
So maybe that's the solution then, is for humans to write the sweary role playing games. And the stuff that pushes, because there are guardrails, rightly so, on a lot of sort of chat stuff. You can't ask it for a scenario with living people and get them horrible things to happen to them. He goes, no, I don't do that.
Right.
Hopefully that stays in place. Maybe there will be room for humans at the edge of the human experience. I'm thinking like Morkborg, which I think it's going to be a long time before you get anything like Morkborg to appear without somebody having Morkborg in their head.
Right.
100% agree. I don't think AI is anywhere near being able to touch that kind of creativity, that pompy art mixed with role play, the gritty nature. That is so far away removed from what AIs would be able to spit out at you that I would really be impressed, because a lot of what Morkborg is literally like, let me write something, and it's teamed up with the artwork itself. So stylized. I really think that we're a long way off from AI being able to do that.
Yeah,
that is a good sign.
And it's also
maybe that's the room for you do read a lot of role playing books. Well, we do read a lot of role playing books, but you do read a lot where you're thinking maybe this image is nice, but I'm not sure what it's to do with what I'm reading. But it's so there will be room, I think, for people to work collaboratively in the space where the art and the words are integrally linked, like you said, because that's something. If you've got an idiot box, it needs 2 idiot boxes to do that. And the thing about 2 idiot boxes, they've got no way of talking to each other without a 3rd idiot box that can get them to communicate. So, collaborative stuff and stuff where the art and the words are enmeshed and feed and play off each other, and the layout. I mean, we can't forget that Morkborg is just a masterpiece in layout.
Right.
I think it's going to take a while before an AI is able to do it and have that idea.
But it's also indicative of, the boys who wrote it and where they live. I couldn't write Morkborg because I grew up in Southern California. Morkborg is, part of the creative process of these 2 individuals, but it is also distinctly, Scandinavian in a lot of its, a lot of what it exhumes from itself. I mean, it's that Scandinavian black metal that you that you would only absorb if you grew up within that. It's distinct to that to a degree. Whereas I could probably do something like that, but it would be totally different. It would be hair metal Morkborg. We would have Poison instead of instead of Scandinavian black metal. So
my advice to creators would be to put themselves into the book, because the one thing the AI hasn't got is a personality. Right. It hasn't got history. It hasn't got pain. It hasn't got grief. It hasn't got bad memories. And that's the sort
100%.
Right.
People should be injecting themselves.
Stand out.
And that's what a lot of people need to realize too. It is not the AI of Terminator and Blade Runner and all of these things. It's just not that. And I may be speaking out of turn, but it's not going to become that in this current capacity of it. So those fears need to
I think 6 months to a year from now, you're going to probably see Drive-Through RPG have something very much like the OGL at the back of the book, or like you said, a footnote in the copyright portion that's literally going to say this piece was made in collaboration with AI using AI art or AI text generated prompts to produce the final product, and it's going to be just like that, like stock art images. If you use stock art, you stick that in there. I think that's what we're going to end up seeing,
and have its own category. So if you type in AI in the search field, or AI
or AI free,
and that's boom, it's going to
I think with that. I think we'll see something along those lines. I think that's a pretty good speculative assertion.
Right. So.
All right. I think this conversation, I mean, we could go on for hours on this. Easily. I know Shane and I do regularly, but I think for the benefit of listeners, we probably should wrap it up. We're at about 2 hours. So
no. So
we're chatty.
So we've solved the AI issue. So when you're done listening to this, people, just rest your weary head. We've taken care of it. So, and there's absolutely nothing to worry about. AI, has your back.
AI is your friend.
Right. And as and don't worry, as long as the debuggers do their job, AI is not going to knock you in the back of the head or run you over down the hallway. I think that's
your foot.
I think that's what we've solved here. It's nothing. It's nothing unless it's debugged properly. And when that's taken care of, it's sunshine and rainbows, till the end of time. So yes, well, Griff and Shane, good God, yes. As Keith said, we could do this for another 2 hours easily, no problem. I mean, this is fantastic, but we have to put a pin in it here. But thank you both so much, so much, because if this was just Keith and I having this discussion, it would sound like horrible AI generating content. So we can't thank you enough for being here and making us sound smart. But
I'm dumb as a box of rocks, so thank you.
Right.
Thanks for the invite.
You are very welcome, and definitely, we want to get you both back on here again, because I'm sure you've got, other topics that we would definitely love your input on. We've other things that we could discuss. But before we go, anything else you would like to close with in regards to AI, or anything else you'd like to say?
For me, I would say it's been a pleasure. Thanks for the invite. Great meeting you, Griff. It was awesome getting your perspective on a lot of things. My big take on AI, it's going to be a tool that be in not too long, as far as role-playing games, that we're just going to look back on and go, well, it's just like a generator. I used to generate characters and NPCs or encounters, and now I just use it to help me prep for tomorrow's game night, and makes my workload easier. That's my grand hope. Be hopeful as far as selling and stuff. Like I said when I wrapped up a minute ago, I think in the end, hopefully we're just going to see a little footnote at the back of the book going, yeah, I used an AI to create this stuff. Let's not panic so much, and everybody make use of it in the right ways, so that it is the better for everybody in the end.
Griff?
Nice.
I think my take on AI, I'm quite pessimistic about it. It tends to ruin things, and I've got a feeling it's not going to be pleasant. But the one hope I do have is the one thing that AI can never do is be human. So if people can exploit their humanness, they're going to be able to create stuff that an AI just isn't going to be able to create, because it doesn't. It's an idiot in a box.
Right.
All right. So I think my big takeaway on this is just stay human. I think I can do that.
Yeah.
I'll be in touch about that later.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can change that.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate you coming on to the show and chatting with us. I don't feel as dumb anymore. I have some new perspectives, which is great. I feel like some of my arguments that Shane and I have had, I feel like they've been validated a little further. Some feel like they've been stomped on, but it's okay.
Yeah.
And we knew we weren't going to convince anybody amongst ourselves or even listeners to fall one side of the line or the other. And that wasn't the intent of this.
No. But But as far as, stomping on our listeners, what do you think? Let us know. Engage in this podcast. This is an interesting conversation that's not going to go away anytime. So drop us an email. Send us your thoughts on this. We would like to. Did we miss anything? Is there aspects that we touched upon that you may disagree with? Is there scenarios or situations that we completely glossed over that is relevant or more relevant than what we discussed? So yeah, please let us know. So, shoot us an email, titterpigspod@gmail.com, or drop us a voice message, whatever the case may be. But engage. Engage.
Yeah, come by our Discord. Say hi.
Yes.
Send us hate mail.
Don't forget to let them know that I'm the robot sympathizer.
Yes. Yeah. No. Griff is the doctor who created it, but realized it's all wrong. So he's the one living, up in the woods, waiting for the Holocaust Jesus, the apocalypse to happen. And he's been warning us this whole time, but no one's listening. I'm the general sunny guy who just said, just everything's fine. What can go wrong? And that's when the fist gets punched through my chest. And Keith, I don't know which one in
Keith's opinion keeps changing. It's morphing as the technology advances. Shane can attest to this. I was an ardent fuck AI when this first started, and now I'm a little more like, as long as it's a tool and it, trying to find my boundaries of what I find acceptable. So I'm human, right? I'm a living, breathing human. So I'm adapting.
So in our movie, you are the final girl. So we will see you in Titterpigs AI Part 2.
Can I wear the Daisy Dukes? No, I'm just kidding. In the halter top.
Oh, all right. Well, thank you everyone for listening. You can, before we go, listeners, or not listeners, our guests, is there any place you would like our listeners to find you?
On the socials?
On the socials or anything you do? I know Griff, has his podcast, but
I don't do the socials because I've come to the realization that social media is horrific. I'm a right barrel of laughs, social media is as corrosive as the incoming AI wave. But yeah, I do podcast with Bud and Griff's Gaming Creep Show.
Yes, I think that's it.
Yeah, I think that's it.
We'll put a link.
I think so. And we talk about horror and games and nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. And Shane, where can people find you?
Oh, my pretty well long dead blog that maybe you can find me and encourage me to start writing again, as Keith always tries to get me to do, is Runkle Plays Games, and my Twitter is Runkle Plays Game. Neither which I do use a whole lot of anymore these days, but who knows, if you interact with me, I will if you interact with me, I'll respond. So I'll be there.
Well, depending on the listeners and how they react to this episode, you may get some. Hopefully they're good.
You might be a social media star again.
Right.
I'll take it in stride either way.
All right, guys. Well, thanks again. And we're going to roll out of this into our final segment of the show, our little Patreon hoopla.
Commander, you've enjoyed all the power you've been given, haven't you?
You believe in the user?
Cute. End of line.
Hey, Titterpigs fam, just a quick reminder, we do have our Patreon going on. It's patreon.com/Titterpigs. You can show your support there. We have 2 tiers for you, a $3 and a $6 tier, so show us some love and be part of our growing community. I would also like to give a shout out to our Patreon supporters. We've got Dr. Mitch, Jason Sheets, Bud from Bud's RPG Review, Dwayne Costa, William Payne, Lupus Malum, and Salt Hart.